Hello there. How's it going, everyone? Dean Kulaweera here. Welcome to another episode of Tech Talks with the Tech Recruiter. Hey, you see this familiar guy over here, right next to me. So I brought back Jeffrey Tefertiller. I had so much positive feedback from the last time Jeffrey was on the show. So Jeffrey, firstly, welcome and thank you so much for returning to the show.
Thank you for having me. I enjoy it. I enjoy us talking shop and trying to help people along their path, their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, for those of you who did not get a chance to watch that episode, I will put it in the description as well, either the description or the comments, depending on where you're watching this. So the last time Jeffrey was on the series, he was speaking about IT service management. We also spoke about business continuity. Now today, Jeffrey will be focused on more so on the business continuity side. We're going to be speaking more about his new book, which he just released. Now, in case those of you who might not be familiar with Jeffrey, I'm just going to give you a bit more information about Jeffrey's background. And then we're going to get right into discussing this exciting topic. So Jeffrey left KPMG in January and started his own consulting firm named ServiceMgmtLeadership. He's an ITIL expert and leader in the service management and business continuity communities. Jeff has authored 4 service management books, and he just released his first business continuity book, and which is what we'll be focused on for this conversation. I will also post in the comments, folks, links to Jeffrey's social media. He's primarily active on YouTube as well as LinkedIn. Someone I highly recommend you follow. He's very active on both these platforms. I'm mostly active on LinkedIn, so I mostly follow his stuff on LinkedIn. And he's continuously putting on content in regards to IT service management and just very active. And also, for those of you non-technical, very easy to understand, very simple. He explains things in a very simple and easy to understand manner. Love Jeffrey's content. Make sure you follow him. And again, his information to follow him and connect with him will be in the description or in the comments. And he's very open to making new connections. So feel free to connect with Jeffrey directly. So without further ado, Jeffrey, firstly, congratulations on the release of your new book.
Thank you. And this book was one of those things that we've all had a little bit of downtime because of the pandemic and all this.
Right.
And it was late March, and I was like, all right, what am I going to do? And so I'm a high energy person. I'm sure it comes through, but I'm high energy, and I'm like, all right, I can knock out a chapter a day and knock it out in 2 weeks.
Nice.
And so that's what I did. Send it off to the guy to help me with my formatting and my editing and my 4 other books, and away we went. And so, like last time we talked about videos, so you mentioned LinkedIn. So videos from now until the rest of the year, those are already, you'll see different hair, you'll see different, but those are already done. And so I've already started on next year's videos. And just because I'm such a high energy person, when I have downtime, I can't just kick back or relax. So that's why I always enjoy this. And you and I helping spread the word on different platforms, different things. So it's all good. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Sounds good. And Jeffrey, you mentioned, so you finished the book in 2 weeks. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And for those of you who missed it, actually, so Jeffrey's his videos, like he sat down in a matter of, I think it was 2 weeks, you said, and he finished 200 videos, folks. Isn't that crazy?
250.
250, so my bad.
Phone,
okay. Correct.
My phone holds 30. And so, I have this simple process where, and I have no secret sauce, so it's all transparent. My phone will hold 30, and I take it, it goes up to Google Photos and allows me to edit from there. So I edit, it goes up overnight. I edit it, pull them back off my phone because I got to clear the space, of course.
Yeah, that's right.
And because we can't kill the music that's on there, we got to kill the videos. And so, I did another 30 the next day, another 30. Maybe had a day off just because my voice was starting to go because you speak for that kind of time. And so anyway, that's why the hair looks a little different if you see this versus some of the videos. Those were all recorded last October, I think.
Amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. Very productive person. I really admire that about you, Jeffrey. Now, Jeffrey, before we jump into your book, for those viewers who might have heard of business continuity or not familiar with what business continuity is, can you explain what exactly is business continuity?
It's the ability to remain continuous. I know continuity and continuous during an event, right? And be able to recover quickly. So how do we identify the core pieces of our business that we have to have continuous invest resources into redundancy or whatever it is to keep those continuous during an event. And so my methodology is, how do we address our loss of facility? Think weather related. Think loss of technology and data. Think cyber. Loss of personnel, flu, whatever. What's interesting about this pandemic is it's really causing us more of a loss of facility because everybody's working at home. Yeah. And so, business continuity doesn't mean I'm going to identify every type of event ahead of time, because that's impossible, right? We don't know what the next pandemic, or you're in Toronto, the next weather storm. I live in the Midwest of the US, tornadoes. Yeah. We don't know. But it's, how do we, through addressing the loss of facility, personnel, and then technology data, how do we, because that's your three main losses, how do we then transform those for our key business processes? We have to remain continuous. So we identify our key processes. Think of a bank. This is my easiest example. You have to have your retail function, the ability for people to walk in, or the teller for drive-through. You have to have your digital banking with your app, your people call in saying, I need this or I need that. Deposits, loans, treasury, things of that nature. So those are your core processes. And then you may have accounting, IT, risk, things of that other nature, which support those others, right? They support them. They allow them to, technology allows those others to be good. And you may even have some vendors that we need to talk about as well. And so it's, how do we invest in keeping those continuous? Right. Sorry for rambling there, but it's, how do we identify what has to be continuous and then start investing in accordingly? Even if it's the vendors. Even if it's the vendors. Nowadays, everybody has AWS. They may have less technology, but more Amazon or Azure or something else. We have to make sure we identify that and include it in our ability to stay continuous. And that's why a lot of people go to those clouds, is because they're like, I only have one data center. I don't want to build a second one. So how about if I put some of my resources over in a cloud that's in somebody else's data center? If I get hit by weather, no big deal.
Got it. Okay.
So sorry if it's a rambling, but it's how do we identify what do we need to stay continuous? Because some of your ancillary stuff, you're like, hey, it's all right. It's all right if it doesn't, it's kind of like during this pandemic, some people are essential workers and some people are non-essential workers. And it's nothing to get your feelings hurt over being non-essential, but it's, how do we support the bigger goals of the organization?
Okay, totally. Okay, all right, understood. Now going from there, Jeffrey, and you speak about business continuity program in your book. Now, why is it important to have a program? Why not just have a discussion about business continuity? Why is there a need for an actual program to be in place? Like, can you give more information about that?
Yes, sorry, I'll try to keep this answer a little shorter.
No. I mean, feel free to go on as long as you need.
Oh, it's all right. It's having an enterprise-wide view. So I'm gonna spin it back around on recruiting, right?
Okay.
It's so much better if an organization has an enterprise-wide theory of how they want to recruit than if each person does it individually, right?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? If each group says, I want to do it this way, another one says, I want to do it that way, and this one says, I want my vendor, and this one says, I want my recruiter in-house. It's kind of fragmented, right? There's no overall. Same with business continuity, is if we have an enterprise-wide goal of these are what we need to do, then we can put those puzzle pieces together in a way that makes sense. And we can invest accordingly in the way it makes sense. Okay. And it's an enterprise-wide viewpoint.
Okay, gotcha. And now I was going through, and by the way, I'm making my way through your book, as I mentioned before. But what I did really like is, and I noticed the cover image. It's an image of, and not to give away any spoilers or anything. So don't worry, I'm not going to give away the ending or anything like that. Right. But but I noticed the cover image, and it's an image of, I guess, someone engaged in pottery, right? And it's some hands. And what I got out of that is that it's something, I guess, as it relates to business continuities, it's something that has to be obviously continuous, but also that you have to kind of mold and kind of control from your end as well. Is that kind of what you were aiming for in the image, or?
Yes, and it's an art, right? It's an art because different, all right, so you're 100% right. Plus the other piece is different organizations have different leadership with different risk aversion or risk appetites. And so some may say, we don't need it. We'll be good. We're risky. We're good. Others may say, and it could be due to regulatory. Regulatory comes in a big way, but it may be, hey, we need to protect our investment and keep this thing going. And so different organizations, and so that's why it's an art. It's not a one size fits all. It's that, even you have two banks, the same size in the same state. They may have different ways that different parts of their company that they have to have continuous. Have to have from their viewpoint. And they may each want to invest different amounts into remaining continuous. And so it's one of those things that's more of an art. And the last thing I want to say about that is every artist has the same tools, right? They have the access to the same tools. But what differentiates the artist? It's the ability to leverage those tools in a way that paints this bigger picture. And that's what I hope to in this book and through our company, to be able to say, how do you leverage this the best? And so that's where we come from, is how do we make these activities into art so your organization may remain continuous.
Yeah, and I really love that analogy as well, and the way you explained it in what I've read so far in the book, because it totally makes sense. And you make the comparisons between the artists having their tools, and of course the person in charge of the business continuity programs, also dealing with it kind of a similar way. So totally get that. Now, Jeffrey, you mentioned that a solid business continuity program should have 5 elements. Can you briefly touch on what those elements are?
Easy. I say easy, right? Easy for me to say, hopefully it's easy to understand.
Yeah.
So we have a business impact analysis that helps us understand. So we do this survey, these conversations with everybody throughout the organization. We say, which core business processes must stay continuous? So we get feedback from everybody, not just one person's point of view, but everybody, right? Because the funny part about life is nobody tells us when we're young, but we all have blind spots. And the key to good work relationships, the good personal relationships, is having people around us that help us understand our blind spots, right? And so this is a different perspective. So we know that X, Y, and Z are our core business processes. We have to stay continuous. And then if you think of it like a genealogical graph or chart, what supports those to keep them continuous? Technology, whatever. HR, accounting, whatever it is. Yeah. So we have our business impact analysis that tells us what needs to remain continuous. Then we have our risk assessment that says, hey, we're really worried about these types of events. So it may be cyber security, right? It may be now everybody's really sensitive about pandemic. It could be weather related. You're in Toronto, I bet, September, October, people think, is it going to be a bad snow year or whatever? And if you're in the southeastern part of the US and you're worried about hurricanes, you make sure that you include that in your business continuity plans. So you go from what needs to remain continuous, what types of events, then you build your business continuity plans, which is the third piece. Fourth is training, because we have these plans which tell us how to respond in type of event, because even down to the activation, who pulls the trigger? Who's the one that says everybody gets to go to work from home, or everybody does X versus Y? And then the last is you have testing, which could be everything from a full failover for technology or a tabletop or something like that. But your testing helps you understand how good your plans are.
Okay, amazing. Now, I guess moving on to from an organizational standpoint, Jeffrey, would you say your book is did you have any specific kind of organizations in mind when you were writing your book? Is it a specific kind that would most benefit, or is it pretty much applicable across the board? Like whether you're a startup, whether you're a large size multinational organization, can you share some thoughts about that?
It's for all, and it's through that thought process. And even let's walk through a scenario. 6 months ago, before we even heard the word pandemic recently, or COVID or coronavirus, before all that, what happens if we had a business continuity plan that says, can we have our people work from home? Because, there are we forget about this. We as humanity, we are so quick to forget the bad stuff, we remember the good, but we forget the bad. And so we think about like how hard it was from some organizations to have the technology, whether it's VPN or laptops or security for people to work from home. But if we had it in our business continuity plans, people could work from home and we tested it, then it would be able to respond more quickly. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And so even like VPN clients, I mentioned those. Some organizations didn't have enough software licensing for that. So now they had to go back and procure it, which slowed them down. And so it's one of those things that how do we enable ourselves to respond more quickly, given whatever? And the one thing I did not say earlier, and I want to make sure I emphasize, is that these business continuity plans are not set in stone. You know, if you have a business continuity plan and this pandemic hits and you're like, I think we could do it better next time, you make sure you update your business continuity plans.
Got it. Okay. So just as a follow-up question to that, Jeffrey, and I was just thinking now, let's take an organization that, you know, pre-COVID-19, they had a good, business continuity program in place. Everything was good. Did anything really change for those organizations, or was it kind of like, okay, yeah, we're prepared for this, we're good, nothing has changed, this we can kind of, smoothly sail through this?
Well, some of them, what was really interesting is I was working with a bank, and we started in January, and we were about 20% through when this hit.
Oh, wow.
And so what really changed for them was they went from we can relocate to a different branch to we can work from home. And so it changed all their thought process, because a lot of companies were like, we're not going to allow our people work from home ever. We don't. Yeah. And so now we're like, well, I don't think it's such a bad idea if we let some people, and then it's not a bad idea if we let more people. And now it's all people work from home. And so those, there's things like that, or there's things like helping us understand the technology needs for people to work from home. And you see this much as I do. There's a big trend now for people working from home. Yeah. Think about this. It even changes leadership styles, our team meetings, our communication, how we communicate.
Yeah.
The ability for that thought process changed a lot, way more than even business continuity.
Yeah, 100%. I think definitely, like, that's one thing that's definitely going to change is these expectations about working from home as well. So totally for sure. Now, Jeffrey, if we move into more of an individual perspective, in the sense of individuals within the organization, right? Like who within, these various organizations that could benefit from having a business continuity program, who within the organization would most benefit from your book? Like, would it be everyone, or are there certain types of individuals within the company that would most benefit from it?
I think there's some that would benefit most, but everybody benefits by understanding. Let's say I'm an accountant.
Yeah.
I'm an accountant. It helps me understand that I support these others, because now I have a business continuity plan that has, and I have to worry about accounts payable and accounts receivable to support these other processes. So now I may, making things up, I may have to figure out how to pay things while I'm remote. I may have to worry about how do I receive money in different times or whatever. But the people who are in core business functions, people that are in IT security, risk, because this regulatory things like, areas like that, they're the most impacted, because the chief risk officer, the regulatory, and when I mention regulatory, in the US, there's an entity called the FDIC. And right. So basically it insures the deposits in banks.
Okay.
They want to make sure these banks have business continuity plans, right? Because if I'm going to insure you for all your deposits, your customers' deposits is what this is basically, then I need to make sure you can remain continuous if you get hit by a hurricane.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I need to make sure that's added to this conversation, and one of your questions a few back, is the roles of vendors and service providers. So if you're in a vendor management office, you need to have this, but we have our core business processes, but we also need to understand we have these vendors and service providers that help support our core business processes.
Yeah.
We need to make sure they have business continuity plans as well. And so when we do our training and testing, we need to make sure they're included, because if you outsource part of your IT any bit and their strategic pieces, you need them to be continuous, this vendor to be continuous, so you can be continuous during an event. if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it goes back to what you were saying before. It's important to get everyone on the same page as well.
Yes, including your vendors,
Yeah.
because those same vendors, when you come to renewal, oh, we're so strategic, you need us, we're there
Yeah.
for you. You know, it's the time to say, yes, but we need you to participate in our business continuity planning so that we can make sure that we're all continuous together. That's right.
Got it. Okay. All right. Now, Jeffrey, what, if you can get into what are some of the key challenges organizations will face in implementing a business continuity program, and what are your suggestions on how organizations can overcome those challenges?
Two things really pop up. One is trying to account for every scenario. There's
Yeah.
no way, right? Because before this, there's no way we would have been able to account for this pandemic. But we could account for loss of facility, loss of personnel, loss of technology, which would then help us be continuous during this. Because there's no way you're going to account for it. And the other is make sure it's enterprise wide. Because a lot of times you'll see this in the book where I mentioned that a lot of times business continuity planning is a subset of cybersecurity or IT security.
Yeah.
And so they're worried about cyber security threats, which is very valid. But if you're only worried about that, then you're going to miss the pandemics. You're going to miss the weather related. They may sneak up on you. And the biggest thing is when two of them hit. So being in the Midwest of the US, what I'm really worried about for my clients right now is we're going through this pandemic. What happens if we get hit with a weather event as well? Things of that nature, because you could, I mean, it's not that big. Or if you're in the southeast part of the US, hurricane season is probably going to be bad this year. And so, how do we just make sure that we're continuous? So it's having that enterprise wide, not individual silos. And it's the ability to say, okay, let's take a big picture view. How are we going to handle it if this facility gets hit? Or, like I said, in Toronto, what happens if the power gets out? Some guy's hits a backhoe, power goes out to your office building. What do you do? How do you account for it? And so that sort of thing. It's how do we just take this big picture view, invest in it, which is another big one, right? Because you can't have a program without investment. And then, it doesn't have to be a lot of investment. It's just, we know what we're investing in and we expect these outcomes.
Okay. Now, Jeffrey, you touched on the importance of training also as well in your book and earlier on as well. So can you speak on business continuity program training, and how do you recommend that training be delivered, and who should take ownership over the training aspect?
Oh my, training's one of those that's a big gotcha in some organizations because they'll have their own learning and development group in-house that wants to do training, and they partner with your business continuity or some of the others. It could be as simple as a voice over PowerPoint. It could be that simple, right? You share your screen on Zoom, you do the voiceover. It could be that simple. It could be lunch and learns. It could be anything, that has to do with the communication of here's what we're trying to accomplish. But there are two things I want to point out with your training. I mentioned just a second ago, we need to make sure our vendors are included. We're in sync with them. But also, every time we update our business continuity plans, we need to make sure we have training. And so think about this. So you have your business continuity plans. They're awesome. Everybody thinks, hey, they're the best thing ever, right? Fine. But then you have personnel. They have contact info for, if something happens, I can get a hold of Dean really quickly and say, hey, I need you to work from home today. I need you to make sure, blah, 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 right? But if our contact information for our people or vendors, we switch vendors, all of that, any of that changes, we need to make sure we update our business continuity plans and then update our training accordingly. Because if we're going to train a new person to contact Dean on his old phone number, that's probably that's not a good thing. That's probably a bad thing. And so, or our contact at our vendor changes, how it is, you get passed from one to the other, fine, no big deal, but you need to make sure you update your business continuity plans and your training.
Okay. Makes sense. And now also in your book, Jeffrey, you mentioned some BCP best practices. Now, can you mention, I don't know if you can pick out one or two that you feel are the most important best practices that you kind of run us through?
Well, I touched on just a minute ago, annual updates of your business continuity plans. By make sure that they're current. And sometimes it's more than annual because you have so much change that you have to make sure they're current, because I request that people have a hard copy at home and at the office in case something happens, they know what to do, because it has like procedures and checklists and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that's current. We need to make sure it's training, at least annual, and for new hires. And lastly, we need to test it. We need to have tabletop or full failover testing just to see how good our business continuity plans are and how well our people understand. Even if they're holding it in their hands and they're looking at it, a lot of times people come through and they'll say, I know this is what I said then, but right now I really think this is a better answer. Fine, let's update it, because that training is I look at some experiences are cheap and some are expensive. And if you learn a lesson during a tabletop exercise instead of during a full-blown event, that's a cheap learning experience versus having something that could have been better when everything's crazy. Think about a cyber event. How do we handle those events in an incident coordinated manner? How do we, what I'm saying? Like, how do we do this in a testing environment, help us understand our weak spots versus having it happen during a live event? We're like, ooh, maybe we should have done this versus that. So those are some of the best practices, no matter how big your organization is, how small, how mature it is. Keeping it current, keeping everybody trained, testing periodically just to make sure that everybody gets it and that it's the best that it can be.
Okay, makes sense. And I know you've kind of touched on this, throughout, Jeffrey, that this whole COVID-19 thing, it hit. I mean, no matter where you are in the world, like all of us were hit, like totally off guard. Would you say that was probably one of the is that what inspired you to write the book, or what really drove you to and finish it in 2 weeks, at that as well?
Well, I had built business continuity plans and built a program for electric utility, which also has regulatory concerns, because, not to be overly simplistic, but a electric utility needs to be able to be continuous during a weather event or whatever kind of event, because they rely on so much technology that you don't see unless you're behind the scenes. So I built that in the past. And when I started working with this bank in January, everything was going along, and then this COVID stuff happened. I was like, okay, how can I have a little bit of downtime. How can I transfer some of the things I've learned here and try to help others? And we mentioned this on the last podcast, the last time you and I spoke, that I give away all the proceeds to my books. I don't keep those. I just think of them as I prefer to, give as much away. Of course, Amazon makes sure they get their cut. But,
of course.
I make sure that, I give it away. And so, it's
That's
just
amazing.
An opportunity plus, the more you write on it, the more that I go through it, it helps me as well hone my craft. Because if I can't, there's I think it's an Einstein quote: if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. And so I need to make sure I can explain it simply so that my craft is strong as well.
Amazing. And I love that quote. I was actually, I've heard that quote as well. And I completely agree with that. Overall, Jeffrey, I'm, for those of our viewers watching, firstly, like where can people grab a copy of the ebook?
It's on Amazon, both I guess this one's just on I haven't put it out for this. Yeah, I guess it is in paperback. I haven't ordered any for I usually order some for myself just to hand out, but I haven't, because there's such a backlog on shipping books.
Yeah.
Because Amazon makes more money on shipping the stuff that people hoard in this time, and so books are way down the list. So I haven't ordered myself some copies yet, but all the books are on Kindle and on Amazon.
Oh, perfect. So it's available in paperback. It's on Kindle. It's on those other platforms as well. Amazing. So, and what I'll do, Jeffrey, I'll grab the link from you. I'll put it. So folks, I'll put it in the description again, or in the comments. So, those of you who are watching it, it's a great book. I'm making my way through it. So far for me, extremely simple and easy and straightforward to understand. And, given the current situation we're in, given, this whole situation and all of us see it, like a lot of businesses were not able to adapt to this situation as well or as efficiently or effectively as they could have. And that's resulted in a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Like businesses shutting down, businesses going through with layoffs. And business continuity is a very hot topic. I mean, it's something that, I mean, I've heard of it before, but not as much as I have heard of it as we do right now. So it's a very interesting book, very, very interesting topic. Make sure you grab a copy. And Jeffrey's an extremely benevolent person. And as he mentioned, he gives it, he gives all the proceeds all the way to charitable causes, I believe, or as well as other causes. So look, folks, you get value out of it. And, I guess the world gets value out of it as well with Jeffrey's charitable contributions. So that being said, and Jeffrey, for people who want to get in touch with you or connect with you, would you say the best way is LinkedIn, or what would that be?
LinkedIn, or visit our website, which is ServiceMgmtLeadership. I have a bunch of URLs back behind the scenes. Right. But service management is such a, I was trying to explain this to somebody yesterday, and they were like, ServiceMgmtLeadership.us, that's kind of weak. I was like, well, it's like retail clothing. For those of us in this niche, I was like, what can I get? What is out there? And I didn't really want to go buy them for every country, like CA and those. So ServiceMgmtLeadership.us will give you a little flavor for our services. But look for me on LinkedIn, big ugly guy with glasses. And so I say that because people, my size is, I'm 6'5".
Wow, that's amazing.
215, 220, and so it's just one of those things that I don't have it in this screen, but in the previous one, you can see the ceiling. And I'm not that tall. I'm just, kind of tall. And so look forward. I enjoy engaging with everybody. And so if anybody needs something, they have questions, I'm happy to. We talked about it last time. I put my mobile number out there for people to text me if they're struggling during difficult times. We're all in this spinning globe together, and we need to help each other, and whatever I can do to help people.
Awesome. That's amazing, Jeffrey. Folks, amazing individual, amazing guy, and definitely definitely someone you will be seeing very frequently on the series, because Jeffrey has a lot of value and a lot of knowledge to share regarding this space. So without further, and also I will, again, I'll put the links to connect with Jeffrey in the comments or in the description, and make sure you follow him. A lot of great information. And if your organization is in need of, having a conversation regarding business continuity, or even IT service management, and then putting those practices in place, make sure you reach out to Jeffrey. He'd be happy to share more information and speak to you about that. Jeffrey, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you again on the series. And just a heads up to everyone watching, we've been talking about doing a live stream as well. So make sure you follow myself, follow Jeffrey as well. And we're going to get that out so all of you can interact with Jeffrey live and ask him any and all of your ITSM or business continuity questions. So Jeffrey, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. That'll be fun, just because people can. I'm waiting for somebody to throw me curveballs and see.
Real curveball, yeah.
Bring it. Let's have a fun conversation.
All right, sounds good. All right, have a good one, everyone.
Thanks.